Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words. Today we're playing some lovely Legacy. At the request of a donor, they wanted me to play their list that they're considering for Eternal Weekend. This is a Mystic Forge deck, but it's a non-Tezzeret build. Instead we're running things like Defense Grid. So this deck is a very known quantity in the format. We use our busted artifacts, like the One Ring, to draw a bunch of cards and Mystic Forge. We have lots of colourless mana in the form of Basalt Monolith, Grim Monolith, and then keys of varying stripes to untap them. We also get to make 2 mana just off of 2 lands. That's Planar Nexus plus Urza's Tower. Candelabra of Tawnos can obviously give us more mana. We have backup plans involving Glaring Fleshraker. So if our artifacts aren't working, we can still just win with Fleshraker and Kozilek's command, which is generally our main win condition when we actually get rolling, but usually our opponents scoop to us doing some busted stuff. We've got access to Ugin Either Storms to delete problem permanents on the other side of the battlefield. We also have another plan in Urza's Saga that we can sometimes use, making our creatures unblockable if necessary via the Manifold Key. So we've got a lot of different levers we can pull. This is probably what I would put as like the number 2 deck to be concerned about when you're going into a big Legacy tournament at the moment. Obviously number 1 is Blue-Black Reanimator, but I think this deck is something you should have your eye on. Most builds of this tend to run Tezzeret now, but this particular list is having a little bit more protection by running some defense grids. So the idea of running Tezzeret is you have another thing they have to counter, but it's also still proactive in the matchups where you don't need something like a defense grid. But obviously defense grid is something that comes down on turn 1 and can establish us having something really good on turn 2. You've seen this deck before on the channel, you've seen similar versions of it elsewhere as well, I'm sure. Sideboard wise, what have we got? We've got a Lattice for the Karn, we've got a Crypt, a Bridge, a Forge and a Paradox Engine, all for the Karn plan. We've got ourselves a Boseiju we can board in to try and blow some stuff up. We have a Portable Hole we can fetch with the Karn to blow stuff up. We've got Graveyard Hate in the form of Leyline and Surgical Extraction, and we've got a couple of Dismembers to blow up some little creatures. This is what we're running. It'll be interesting to see how it compares to the Tezzeret build that I played last time. So like, subscribe, and let's start jamming some Mystic Forge. If you are looking to buy some Magic cards, not only does 3for1 Trading have a wonderful online store linked in the description of this video, but they will also have booths at upcoming events. MagicCon Atlanta from the 26th to 28th of September, Eternal Weekend Pittsburgh from the 9th to the 12th of October, and Spiel 25 in Essen from the 23rd to the 26th of October. Whether you're looking to sell off cards you don't need or add more to your collection, 3for1 Trading has got you covered. Okay, this hand has different levers we can pull here. So we could start off on an Urza Saga and just play a Saga's game, or we could go turn 1 Grim Monolith into Mystic Forge. I think we're keeping this. We're going to see what our opponent leads off with, and that'll inform us as to what we're supposed to do. If we're really worried about counter spells, we can just play the Urza Saga plan. A basic island. That could be a multitude of different decks. So we can do Mystic Forge around a days here. That's probably a pretty solid place to start. We play out this Lotus Petal. Put another one. Let's try for this Grim Monolith. So the Mystic Forge obviously not as good as the One Ring, but it can still do a lot of work for us. Is this going to be counterspelled or not? I think if we didn't draw the Lotus Petal to play around a potential daze, well, they had a Spell Pierce. Right, so probably a slow control deck. I was going to say, if we didn't draw the Lotus Petal, I would have played the Saga turn 1 instead and just start cranking that up. But if our opponent is a slow deck that's running stuff like Spell Pierce, then the Urza Saga is probably going to be okay as well. If it's a turn slower, that's not going to really matter that much. Corey Steelcutter. Okay, so we're just a Delver deck with Spell Piercers in. Interesting. And they've got the Prowess to trigger off the Corey Steelcutter as well. So we have some options for next turn. We might just be playing Urza Saga, untapping our Monolith, because we can turn this Lotus Petal into 2 mana by using it to untap the Monolith. And that's going to work out better for us most of the time. So there is a clock on us, and we are sat underneath our own Ancient Tomb, which is not always ideal. We can interact with this if we want to, but it's not great to do so. Would I rather get Spell Pierce in or untap my Grim Monolith? I think I would rather... Sorry, get the Saga Lantern in. I think I would rather get the Grim Monolith untapped. This will make our constructs smaller, though. That's the one downside here. Because at the moment, we're not under the gun for Delirium, so I'm not really trying to fight over that. I think just having more mana so we can maybe do like a big K command next turn is going to work out well. Our opponent's leading off here on a Preordained, so they're almost certainly going to get another Monk token, whether that's bolting us in the face or playing like another creature, like a Dragon's Rage Channeler here. And we've got a Bauble popping off here. So this is going to be a lot of prowess going on now. So we're going to get hit by these 2 monks for at least 5 damage this turn. Could quite easily be half our life total though. So we've just led off with the Urza Saga turn 1. We would have had a construct in play right now. And that would have been okay. We don't know if they were sandbagging a wasteland and just aren't particularly interested in fighting over this right now. I suspect they probably don't have a wasteland because I would prioritise smashing an Urza Saga on site whenever possible. I think we're right to go for the Mystic Forge around a days. It just didn't work out this time, but I still think on average that's going to be the better play that we could have made. Lightning bolts. Okay, we are taking half our life total. So this makes the One Ring potentially awkward for us, if we can find it. But we're still going to try and dig for it with the Kozilek's command, and that's probably going to be our game plan here. Alright, they got something else here. Another bolt? It is another bolt. This is pretty bad news for us. So Ancient Tomb is off. So our little plan is not going to work there. We didn't get to untap this, and we're just going to probably roll over and die very quickly. Karn the Great Creator. I don't think we have anything doing here. I think we're just very stone cold dead to what our opponent's got over there. That's a pretty strong hand for our opponent. So what do we want in a matchup like this? Like maybe the Boseiju if we need to slow our opponent down, but we have to go through a Planar Nexus or one of our artifacts to get there. There is a worry about things like Meltdown and Null Rod as well, so I think it is worth boarding in the Boseiju. Now, what do we take out for the Boseiju? I don't mind going up one land because our opponent is a Wasteland strategy and a Day strategy, so having a little bit more mana isn't the worst. I don't think we're doing Dismember things. These are more for like Collect Roof decks. So we could take out the Basalt Monolith. It's kind of expensive and doesn't really do enough on its own, especially into like Days Wastelandy type stuff. So I think we're better off just having Boseiju over this. It is still mana in our deck. Obviously, it's not fast mana like Monolith, but Monolith isn't fast mana really. It's an investment for the following turn. And we don't necessarily want to be investing in future turns that much. We just want to be trying to win the game here and now. But we're under the gun already. We were getting absolutely bodied by that Delver deck here. See, what do we have here? This is a turn to Karn. That seems fine to me. I think we're better off playing the tower out, because the Nexus can work with these Urza's workshops. So can the tower, to be fair. But this can also filter for mana if we need to do like a Boseiju later on. So I'd rather, if something's getting wastelanded, for it to be this Urza's tower. We do have to decide if we are going to Karn on turn 2 or not, because that does play into Days. I guess we'll see what we draw. We could just K-command this out of the way around Days, and that's quite solid. Stops them getting the selection. Okay, now that we've drawn a second Karn, I'm pretty happy to just ram this Karn. If they interact with it, then we can just jam another one next turn. Wow, we're just in with this, are we? We are going to get a card while the getting's good. What do we want here? So there are different routes we can do, but because we're going to need 2 turns at least to get the lands out of our hand, I'm not sure Ensnaring Bridge feels the best right now. Whereas we could just go and get ourselves like a Mystic Forge and have a card advantage engine. I think that works out better for us most of the time. A Wasteland, so they're going to break up our little combo of lands here. They have to pick wisely which one it is. They should probably go after the Nexus because it was the second one we played out, which tells them that this is the one we're trying to save from Wasteland more. Right, they're going to bash the Karn in for a little bit, that's fine. Null Rod. Do I want to exile their graveyard? I don't think so. A Voltaic Key. So I'm going to play this one out. So if we play out the Voltaic Key first, that gives us Metalcraft on the Urza's Workshop, so we end up tapping for 3 mana instead. Turn this into a creature. I would like to make some spawns, I think, and exile this creature. I'm going to play around Days here. Oh no, we don't have 3 artifacts for our workshop, do we? Karn isn't an artifact. Whoops. Alright, let's try and K-command this. This can be undone by Days. Playing out the Voltaic Key was a huge mistake. Although it feels like our opponent's force of willing here. Yep, okay, so it was going to get clipped either way. So it ended up not mattering there. But yeah, we're not supposed to play out the Voltaic Key. We didn't have the Metalcraft. Like, ends up complete wash and didn't really matter, but still. So now the Null Rod gets to attack our Karn, which is less than ideal for us. We're getting bolted on the Karn first. Yep, so they're going to bolt the Karn, and then they're going to attack us for 3. They don't have a way of getting Delirium right now with what's on board. So we can obviously just get a portable hole and take out this Null Rod in a bit as well. But the things we actually have payoff-wise don't require us to have this Null Rod leave play. Like Mystic Forge can just do its thing. Sure, we can't tap it. We still get to play cards off top of our library. So in this situation, Mystic Forge is looking better than a One Ring. They bottomed both those cards off the Preordained, so they're not hitting exactly what they want, but this did give them Delirium to hit us for 5. There goes the Wasteland on our Planar Nexus. That cuts us off an awful lot of mana. The One Ring, you are not useful. So these only tap for 1. We don't get to cast any spells in our hand. Our opponent gets to bash us down for 3 again. This Noldor is likely to be a 1-of, possibly a 2-of on our opponent's sideboard. Obviously, it's something they're going to be looking for with their cantrips and opening hands. So we did prepare for it by bringing in the Boseiju, although we don't have the mana to cast the Boseiju now, or to pitch cast the evoke channel, whatever it's called. Channel, isn't it? Evokes creatures. It's no channels creatures as well from the original Saga as well. Anyway, we are very dead here. I don't think we have any ways of winning this game. Okay, this doesn't hurt. This actually does give us the delirium we wanted. So this gives us 6 mana. So we can protect ourselves. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's probably going to be difficult for them to finish off us on the next turn. So I think we just play the Mystic Forge this turn. And then next turn... we don't get to take this off the top. Yeah, so then next turn we can sit behind the One Ring and hopefully over a couple of turns get the Mystic Forge rolling to the point where we can just Karn and Ensnaring Bridge. If our opponent kills us this turn, then so be it. But I think this is the line that leads to us winning. We could play the One Ring this turn and tread water. But I think treading water once we have the Mystic Forge in play is way better for us. This is going to give us +3 mana on the next turn as well, because it's going to pump these workshops as well as tapping for mana itself. A Brainstorm, okay. So if we see another Dragon's Rage Channeler here, sorry, another Murktide Region, it's +1, 2, 3 damage. So that puts us to 1 if they have another Murktide. If they have a Lightning Bolt, it also puts us to 1. So this One Ring is just going to be a fog. But even if we sit behind an Ensnaring Bridge, we are at the mercy of our opponent's top deck being Runner Bolt. Or Price of Progress if that's something they brought it in, which I quite like at the moment in the format. Alright, the Wasteland is strong. At one of our workshops. That's going to cut us off with a lot of mana next turn. Price of Progress. Okay, they just had the Price of Progress to Damas. Yep, that matchup feels pretty bad for the poor little Mystic Forge deck. They just have efficient threats that can really prey upon our Ancient Tombs. They have enough disruption to keep us off balance, and if they collapse any of our mana engine, we're really in trouble. Alright, not a great start, but I think it's important to identify where our deck is weak, especially if it's something you want to be taking to Eternal Weekend. You have to ask yourself, what are your bad matchups, and are you okay with them? Alright, let's go to round number 2. Well, we need some mana. This hand doesn't have any. Let's mulligan. This also doesn't have any mana, so let's send it back again. So what? Nexus, Manifold Key, Mox Opal. We're still not live. We have to mulligan again. Okay, this is about the best we've got. So we've got to get rid of 3 cards. So I think I want to keep Ancient Tomb, Saga. That seems like a good place to be. I don't think we want this Lotus Petal. We can keep one of the keys. Are we keeping Monolith or a key? We can go and get another key off of this Saga. But the first key means that our construct will be a 1-1. Sorry, it won't be a 1-1, so it won't get pinged off by little Bowmasters and things. If we were on the construct beatdown plan. It's a really tough choice. I think we ditch the key. Our deck feels really powerful when we have a Grim Monolith and a key. So we have that built in our hand. Okay, our opponent is going to be punching us in the face pretty hard. Right, it's just a 2-2. That's okay for now. Our opponent is a Wasteland strategy, which will collapse some of the things we're trying to do. What have you got for us, deck? Better be good. Kozilek's Command. That is playable and can do some stuff with it. But we are under the gun already because we're on a Malta 4. Okay, this does not interfere with our Urza Saga. That's good news. Now, Eldrazi Linebreaker. That is a big boy, isn't it? Okay, so we might have to Kozilek's Command this turn rather than making a construct, but that's fine. This is so much damage. Just a casual 8 damage on turn 2. This Eldrazi deck is really good, by the way. I think people are sleeping on it a lot. Alright, the One Ring. That is a pretty fine Magic the Gathering card, isn't it? We do get to cast it here. How much life can we realistically pitch into it? I think it is worth getting this One Ring in. We're probably going to draw more copies of it, because this is truly a heinously designed Magic card, where it's this legendary artifact that you want to have 4 copies of in your deck because one copy finds another and resets the downside. So we're going to be leaning into that, I think. We know we're getting the key, so we can untap stuff. Their left mana opens. This could be a K command for our opponent, which will be 1, 2, just 2, because they can't get the discount on this because they have to be 7. Alright. Float some mana. Get ourselves a key. Then we're going to be drawing some cards. This land will tap for 2, so I'd rather have that in here. We can untap the key. We can untap the monolith. Are we looking for another One Ring now? We're very dead on board to what our opponent has. If we take this one out, we take 3, 4, 5, 7. Do we just have to keep spinning for more stuff here? I think we have to look for another One Ring here. This card is pretty bad in this matchup, as it turns out. So we didn't find the things we wanted. Let's untap this Grim Monolith. Let's make a key. Tap this Grim Monolith. Alright, so we can kill their guy and make spawns. And then, do we make enough spawns to kill another guy? We don't, do we? We're only going to make 3 spawns here. That's probably not good enough. We could dig and make 3 spawns. That's not good enough. We do have to kill their creature. So I think it's probably just making spawns so that we can chump block. Get out of here, Line Breaker. Now, they still have their own Glaring Fleshraker, but we can chump block the attacks here. So we need to string together 4 spells to kill us, or 1 Kozilek's Command. Kozilek's Command just kills us here. I think this gives us the best chance of getting into the next turn. This only hitting colourless things is going to be a real problem for us. A Reality Smasher. So they attack. We block these 2, and we block that. We take 4. We die to the One Ring. Is there a way that we can beat our own One Ring? There isn't in this deck, is there? We don't have like a Tishana's Tidebinder type thing. Now we're just very dead to this Eldrazi deck. Eldrazi deck, I think, is a really strong deck that people are sleeping on for sure. Do I want Dismembers is the question here. It does cost us a lot of life, but it costs us less than a Fleshraker is going to... not Fleshraker, a Line Breaker is going to deal. It might cost us less than a Fleshraker as well. Boseiju for Chalice is interesting. And our opponent is a Wasteland strategy, but then we have these 2 Dismembers. How would we like to fit them in? I think we trim the 2 defense grids because we don't need those. And that is quite a nice little 3 for 3. That makes a lot of sense with how we're sideboarding there. Okay, I'll keep this one. So we have choices with our Manifold Key about when we fire it off. I think it's better to turn it into more mana, so we're just going to save it for turn 2. So we can play Fleshraker into a key. And if something happens to our lands, then we can just play the key and slow it down a touch if we're not going to be able to get like massive mana. Again, I think it's more important to protect our Nexus, so I'm going to play this Urza's Tower. Our opponent doesn't really have big turn 1s that often. Now they can do like Lotus Petal, Soul Land, make a Line Breaker, and that's a very big turn 1. But that's not a very common play for their deck. Could certainly be the play they're doing here, but we'll see. Null Rod. Okay, that's fine because we're on the Fleshraker Karn plan anyway. We can blow it up with whatever we want later on. Alright, I think we are going to be odds on to win this one from here. We'll play this out. We'll yield to this Fleshraker trigger because we're going to be putting a lot of these on the stack as the game goes by. Let's play this Manifold Key. And then next turn we can do Karn stuff. Alright, so they're probably going to Thought Knot Seer and take away our Karn here. That's probably the best thing they have available. This would be a pretty reasonable 5 to keep. Yep, our opponent is on that plan. So goodbye, Karn the Great Creator. If we get rid of this later on, we do get to draw a card. But our opponent is in a pretty good position, especially from a multi 5. The things you can do when your land's tapped for 2. Who needs all the extra cards? Kozilek's Command. Okay, so this is pretty disgusting. So we're going to exile the creature. Do we want to make a bunch of spawns? Or do we want to dig a bit? How many spawns does this even make? It's quite a few. We get 1 card off the Thought Knots there. I think we're just going to go in like this. Do I want to bin off these spawns to dig extra cards? Or do I want to keep the mana? That is a kind of pretty big inflection point. I think I want to keep the mana because our artifacts are locked down. Because if I was just making spawns, I wouldn't need to worry about that. Karn the Great Creator is very much the sort of thing I'm after right now. We don't need a Voltaic Key. We don't need a Lotus Petal. Do I care about this One Ring? I don't want our opponent to be able to take the Karn from our hand. So I'm going to put the Karn and the One Ring on top. And then we draw the One Ring. Oh, we're going to draw the Karn as well because we got rid of the Thought Knots there. And then we get to tap for 2. So the One Ring can give us protection and buy us a bit more time. It can also come into play once the Karn has dealt with his Null Rod, which it can do next turn. Can we do it all next turn? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we need 4, 5, 6. So we need 10 mana to redo what we're doing here. But the Fleshraker refunds us some of that. I think we have enough to do it all. So we go 1, 2, 3. We play out the Karn here. And we minus the Karn. We're going to get Portable Hole. And we make a white mana. Portable Hole. This gets rid of the Null Rod. And play this one out, which now taps for more mana. We get the One Ring in. And here we go. Alright, our opponent's just scooping to that. So generally speaking, when you play this Karn Forge deck, a big chunk of the games are just very one-sided either way. And then it's the little small margin of games in the middle where the play skill really matters. And sort of knowing the deck really matters. Obviously, like, sideboarding things are really important too. With that being said, our sideboard is relatively small because it's got a Karn package. 2, 3. We've got a lot of artifacts, so the Mox Opal will be online. I think this one is fine. It's going to be a chalice. It is a chalice for 1. That does cut down some of the cards in our hand, unfortunately. So I believe we are playing out this Urza Saga. And we're going to play out this Mox Opal to make our creatures bigger. We're not going to save this for a Fleshraker. We don't have one in hand right now. We don't want our opponent to put chalice on 0. Alright, we're going to get hit with a line breaker. That's the worst case scenario for us here. Welcome to the worst case scenario. So we'll be taking 4 this turn. That means that Karn is going to be very easily pressured when the time comes. It's going to be hard to get these out of our hand for any value because obviously they just go into the Chalice of the Void. We can't use them to generate more mana or get our Mox Opal up and running. So this turn we don't really have any good options. We could make a 1/1 guy. That's not really where I want to be. So we're just going to, unfortunately, sit behind this Ancient Tomb and try and get this Urza Saga to make us some guys that can contend with what's in front of us. Thought-Knot there. Sure. I think our opponent takes a Kozilek's Command because that will be able to remove one of their creatures next turn. Goodbye, Karn. Alright, so we're going to get hit for an absolute metric ton of damage here. So this is 9 damages. So we could chump block here. I think we have to do that. This feels so bad, though. Well, this gives us Metalcraft next turn, though. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can take out the Eldrazi Linebreaker if we don't block here. But then we're going to be taking 9, 10, 11 in total. So we're going to go to 3 life and take out the Linebreaker. And then we can jump block the Thought-Knot next turn. I think we have to take this, actually. This feels pretty sketchy. I don't think we can just let the Linebreaker live. Alright, so I think we have to tap here. We could get a Lotus Petal. 2, 3, 4, 5. Takes out the Linebreaker and makes us some spawns. I think I just want a Manifold Key here. We could make more spawns by playing the Ancient Tomb, but then our life total is gone. Don't think we get to do that. So we'll exile the creature, and then I think we have to make spawns here, which can also chump block. Am I attacking here? I don't think I'm chump blocking with the construct. If they have a Linebreaker, it's going to come in for 5. So I guess we have to keep our guys back. If we attack here, we put our opponent to 11. We can untap this if we want to. No, I think we just have to keep it back in case they do have another Linebreaker. We need to soak up as much damage as possible. Thought-Knot here. It's a good one, but it isn't immediately attacking us with damage, so I can live with that. So this turn, a Spawn goes under the bus, and then next turn we can play the Mystic Forge, and maybe we get above the power and toughness of this Thought-Knot here. This is a toughie. Real toughie. Come on, deck. Give us a banger. Well, I did ask for a banger, didn't I? I don't come much more banging than this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's have the One Ring. Now, there is a question about how greedily we drink from this well. This mana does not hurt us for this turn cycle. So I could draw a card and then draw some more stuff. But then we have to find the One Ring next turn. Is this fog? Like, we are very dead to what our opponent's doing anyway. So I think we are just going in on the One Ring now. Not really the ones we wanted here. We're going to play some stuff out into the Chalice to empty our hand for the purposes of the Ensnaring Bridge that we can draw into. Oh, we should untap this artifact first, shouldn't we? Because we're going to get another drawer for this. Okay, so then we can play out this Grim Monolith. I'm not going to tap it though. We get to attack for free here. Okay, we're going to go to 1, so we can put our Ancient Tombs to one side and leave those alone. If we find another 1 ring, then they unlock for a turn. But our plan is to have a really good turn and win the game next turn. Alright, so we're going to go to 1. Alright, let's draw some cards with a 1 ring. That's not it, is it? Okay, let's untap. I'm just trying to work out what we're doing with Fleshrakers if we draw 1. I think we're always playing out as tower here. Let's untap this 1 ring and draw some more cards. It's your time to shine now. Does this win us the game? Probably. So we go Fleshraker here. And then we play out this Monolith. So playing out these keys is cost neutral underneath the Fleshraker because they refund us. So we're just going to play these keys out. So keys and Candelabra. Get over there. And then we can just Kozilek's command for a bunch of little guys. Scryex. Make some guys. Seems fine. So it's going to make 3 guys. Well, it's going to make 4 guys, actually. And that's going to be lethal. We got the GGs in chat. That was a close one. This matchup feels pretty knife edgy. Like, once we start doing our nonsense, it's very hard for our opponent to come back from there. But the margins are very tight because you don't have a lot of life to work with, and they do have disruptive elements like Thornotzer, Chalice of Void, and they also have access to Null Rod and Wastelands. I think I quite like the Eldrazi spot in this matchup, actually. But we managed to just get over the line because our deck does some really silly things. Let's go to round 3. This hand is pretty darn slow. I don't think we can keep one that looks like this. Sure, I'm okay to keep this one. I think we've probably been off the Ugin here. Although we're pretty close to casting it. Is it the defense grid we keep? Because this card could do nothing, or it could be useful. We just don't know. I think I'm going to get rid of the defense grid because all of these cards are good. And if our opponent doesn't have counter spells, then we're really rewarded for doing that. They might be on Nadu here. Let's see. So I think we play out the tower and pass. So next turn we can play Karn and maybe get something useful. Just try and work our way up to getting this Ugin, which is going to mess our opponent up big time. Okay, so we are on Nadu. So we could be effectively dead next turn. That's spooky. This is looking like the Cradle build. So it's like very much like Elves, but now with added bird action. Does this change anything? So this is +1 mana. So we currently have 5 mana. There's not enough to do very much, is it? We could stock up for a turn. What do we have in our sideboard for 1 mana that helps here? Literally nothing. Cool. So we're very dead to the Nadi. Well, we're not dead to Nadi, but it's probably going to be bad news for us. So what is the plan? We could make a Fleshraker, make a Karn and plus the Karn to try divert attention, or we could minus the Karn. But we're not even getting anything too exciting if we minus the Karn here, are we? I guess the Lattice lock is kind of interesting against our opponent because they're not going to be able to pressure it very quickly. As the closest thing we have to a Cursed Totem is what I'm thinking. The other option here is we play the Grim Monolith and pass with the intention of Ugining next turn. That might be our best option, you know. I think that's where we're at here. If our opponent Nadu's us, we might be able to go over the top enough with what we've got here. I'm not feeling great about this one, though. The sort of Nadu Elves style list is very adept at putting its combo into play. That's like all it does. Yep, here is the Nadu. All right, let's see what our opponent gets off the top. Because this is a combo build, so they're just going to keep drawing cards off the Nadu until they can put a Crate Hoover into play. Now, there is a chance they don't actually get to go here and it fizzles. The Boseiju is obviously very good because it allows them to play the Quran Ranger, which then untaps more mana via the Noble Hierarch. Now the Nomads, there's another Tropical Island. So what they're really looking for is a Cradle, and that's where they really pop off. They played out one of their Hierarchs, playing out the birds. They probably have Chord of Callings in their deck as well. There is the Cradle, that's what they've been looking for. There's a Green Sun Zenith there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So each creature is going to get +7 +7, so that's 14, +5 is 19, plus this one is 20. Our opponent has deterministically lethal here. I'm not going to make them show it to us. They can quite easily just Green Sun Zenith. We know it's in there. All right, we got bodied pretty darn hard there. This is very much a matchup where we'd like those dismembers, and we don't need the defense grids. I think that's about all we're changing up here. And just send it again. So if we were playing one of the builds that has Pithing Needle, that might have been useful for us. We could have been able to like maybe tutor for a Pithing Needle and get that in play and stop the nomads. Something the Tezzeret builds tend to have access to because they have slightly more 1-drops, so they can have a little bit more utility with their Tezzeret. Tezzeret also gives them a main deck portable hole as well as main deck Tormod's Crypt they have access to as well. Alright. We're on the play. What does this hand do? Not really enough to beat a Nardu list, is it? So we need to mulligan this. We got keys. We got nothing to untap with them. I think we can keep this one. Oh dear, this is real bad too, chat. Yikes. We can play out a key and then any land is very good. How many lands are we running? We got 20 lands. So it's slightly better than 1 in 3 to hit. But if we don't hit, we're completely done. Are we supposed to just mulligan this? We can have some pretty busted 4s. But like any land on the next turn, and we just have all the mana in the world, right? I think we have to keep this and just try and draw a land. So we get rid of Karn, and we get rid of one of the keys, and that's where we're at. We are very much at the mercy of the top of our deck here. But we have other things that are mana that aren't lands. So we've got 20 lands, and then we've got the Lotus Petals as well. So that's 24, so it's probably close to 1 in 2. Mox Opals kind of get us there, but it takes 1 turn. We do have to worry about Collector from our opponent's deck as well. Prismatic Ending. Okay. Land. Here we go. Not a land. Okay. We are in some bother here. Like, to be fair, this is the hand that pretty much wins the game if we find the land. So I think it was worth keeping. The upside of this hand is very strong. And if we find a land, this turn we're still in good shape. Birds of Paradise. They're getting all their bits and pieces out. We didn't draw a land this turn either, so I think we just lose this one. I think the 5 was still better than going to a 4. Like 24 hits over 3 turns is plenty. Right, do you have a nomads here? No nomads though. That gives us another turn. Not that we can necessarily get through all this nonsense, but let's have a looky. Boseiju. Very rude. Guess how many basics we have in our deck? 0. Alright, we are very done here. We've drawn a Dismember, but we can't use it because we have no manas. And the mana in the upkeep that we added is gone by the time we've drawn the card. On the plus side, our opponent hasn't found any nomads yet. Or a chord. Kozilek's Command, that's nothing. Birds of Paradise. Yep, coming in for 4. And Urza's Workshop. Okay, so we're going to wait for this to attack, and then we can Dismember it, and then they can't attack us for 2 with the Dryad Arbor then. Now, if they put a chord on the stack, then we have to interact. Hierarch is fine. They attack with this, the triggers go on, and then we will Dismember it. A Green Sun Zenith into their hands. So they just go and get another Nardu now. Actually, no, they don't. They go and get a... They kind of do whatever they want. We missed on land again. That should be game. We found 1 land in the top 11 cards. Or we've had 2 lands out of 11 cards in our deck. That is statistically quite unlikely. And a Lotus Petal would have also worked for us as well. Sure, you keep blowing my things up. Should have played this key out last turn. I think we're just dead though. This is going to be the Green Sun Zenith for Collector Roof. Yeah, this is why I don't think there's any point playing the Voltaic Key out. Oh, a Galactique. That's different. Alright, we are dead on board. I'm going to pack this one up. That did not go very well for us. Our opponent managed to combo underneath us quite nicely there. And there's not a lot we could really do about that one. And they have access to Collector Roofs and things. I think this Nardu matchup, the Elves Nardu build especially, is pretty good into the Forge decks because it very reliably can put Collector Roof into play on turn 2 if it needs to. And it also has a combo that just goes over the top. Alright, let's go to round 4. Alright, what does this opener do? We play a key. We play nothing on turn 2. I think we do better than this. Yeah, 4 mana on turn 2. That's what we came here to do. We keep this. We probably ship back a Karn. And that seems fine to me. So we begin with the tower into a key of some description. And next turn we can play the One Ring even Well, not even if they wasteland us. If we wasteland us, then we have to draw like a soul land. We're in a good spot. We can play a One Ring around. If our opponent plays like turn 1 Mages of the Moon, we can just go Planar Nexus, smash this Grim Monolith in, tap it, untap it, tap it, make a One Ring. That's pretty solid. But now we have to decide what we're playing around. Like, I think we just have to play the Monolith. There's not really anything beyond that game plan wise. We play the Monolith, see if it resolves. If it resolves, then we can decide what we're playing after that. So we could like just jam the Karn or whatever. I just don't think that's the right play. I think we want to get more mana here. If they want to interact with this, because we're not exposing ourselves to days by playing this Monolith out. And then if they want to interact with this, then we can play one of our big spells next turn. If they don't interact with this, then we can play one of our 3 payoffs in our hand. Right, so they Force of Will pitching a Stifle. That is an unusual customer. I think we're just going to pass here. Is this Stifle Naught, perhaps? That would be my guess. It could just be some Delver list that you sometimes see 1 or 2 Stifles in. I don't think it's right in a Corey Steelcut build to have Stifle, personally. But some people are running it. Wasteland. That's pretty good. We're just going to get picked apart like we did against the Delver deck, perhaps. That seems more than likely here. A Grim Monolith that we can't play. Oh, the Beanstalk. Okay, so we're doing some flavour of Beanstalk control. Okay, let's try a Grim Monolith. I don't know if our opponent's playing Bug Beans or not. Bug Beans has Daisies, the other builds don't. The other builds are more popular than Bug Beans, but it looks like we're Bug Beans. Okay, but we can't just not play our Grim Monolith there, because we don't know if we've got another land to play around a Daze, and the more time we give our opponent, the worse it gets, because they can just sculpt a hand that can stop us ever getting our big payoffs into play. An Ancient Tomb. I think we're going to try and double up by doing a Kozilek's command in their turn to see if we can force action and then get them to tap out and then allow us to resolve the One Ring. That's going to be our plan here. I think the One Ring has to be our big payoff. It's the strongest card in our deck. Temporal Mastery. What is going on here? Our opponent's in the Spice Zone. This is going to draw them a card and take them extra turn. It's not bad. They're a spicy build. We like to see it. So it's kind of all bets are off what our opponent could be playing at this point. There could be another colour in there. There could be all sorts of spice. There could be no other colour. This could be the... yeah, I think this might be the blue-green tempo deck. Kind of a fringe thing. But it does exist. Uses Beanstalk and Hooting Mandrills and stuff. Right, so not flipping Delver. I don't think we need to care about Delver, just attacking for 1 damage. What about second Delver? Pretty good. It's going to be some damage coming our way. So if that having an extra turn card was on their next turn, then they get to flip these Delvers and attack with them. And that would be a lot scarier. Okay. I'm going to Kozilek's command, I think. I think we're going to max this out. It does play into Daze, but that's a Daze that's going to clip anything when we're getting pressured on our mana base. A Force of Will, a cantripping Force of Will, no doubt. A Stifle as well was what they pitched. Okay, so maybe we can draw a Soul Land or Planar Nexus and just pop off. Alternatively, we can just cast the Manifold Key and pass a turn. A Brainstorm has been revealed. So, they now have a pretty reasonable clock. How much permission do they have to back it up is the question. They probably have main deck Force of Negations if they're just in blue-green. Quantum Riddler, so this is going to draw them a card off the Beanstalk. And then this is why they're running Stifle, so they can stifle their Warp trigger at the end. Just kind of like a bad Dreadnought type plan almost. Cards over there. We have a Workshop. It only taps for 1 mana, unfortunately, so we can't play any of the spells in our hand. It's getting pretty tough for us over here. If we draw a Planar Nexus, we end up with a lot of mana, though. Another Temporal Mastery, so that's game over, because they hit us for 6 and they hit us for 6 again. Okay. Seems like these sorts of Delver strategies are absolutely smashing us to pieces today. So, I don't think we want Dismembers for this. Again, they're more... I guess they might have Collectors because they are in green and they don't have access to removal. So maybe this is something we need to consider. Take out this Basalt Monolith. I don't like the Basalt Monolith that much. We can take out the Soul Guide Lantern here. It can make Delve harder for them, but we're not really about that life. Let's just have a couple of Dismembers in. This can kill Quantum Sphinx, or whatever it's called, as well as little guys. So in theory, this is a matchup where the defense grid should be pretty good. Okay, we can try and get a Grim Monolith down before our opponent has access to days or anything. That seems pretty reasonable. Alright, we're just in with that. I'm not going to do a Kozilek's command for 1 here. We're just going to go for a Karn the Great Creator on turn 2. A Tamiyo. That is certainly worth Kozilek's commanding. But we also have a Dismember, so... Ooh, that's quite nice too. So 3, 4 mana. We can play this Mystic Forge. Just get this out early. Let's play this key. We're going to have some mana here. We're going to have a good Mystic Forge turn, I think. So then we untap this Grim Monolith. Key. And there's another key underneath it. Just untap our Monolith. Cast this key. Untap this Monolith. It's 5, so we can go... Exile target creature. And we're going to scry and draw a card. I'm going to play around days. I think if they had a hard counter, they would have changed things up by now. I don't want this as a Saga. I do want this as a tower for next turn. And we draw it as a Saga anyway. Cool. Let's take this top card off. Lotus Petal, I'll have one of you. There's Voltaic Key. They can make us burn the Petal if they want to daze this. Okay. So we can take this card off the top in our upkeep if we want to. But we are certainly gaming right now. This is a Paradox Engine game if we can just do that with the Karn. If we get the Paradox Engine, then we can just have basically infinite mana and then the Mystic Forge can scry away stuff. We should be okay. Just a Delver of Secrets, that's fine. I was supposed to take that away, wasn't I? This is still fine though. So this is worth 2 mana, this is worth 3. So we play this one out this turn. So let's untap this Grim Monolith. Let's untap this Grim Monolith again. Let's cast a Karn. Alright, let's scoop it up. So we just go and get the Paradox Engine, and then when we play this, it untaps everything, including all of our keys, so we basically just have infinite mana and infinite scries. Alright, that felt pretty good. Let's go back in. Do we want this Boseiju for the purposes of them A, being a Wasteland deck, and B, potentially having access to a Null Rod? That's certainly an interesting one. Yeah, I think we'll trim a key for a Boseiju. Defense Grid is obviously a banger here. We're going to keep this. So we can play around days a little bit here. So I'm just going to play a Manifold Key out. Play out a second Manifold Key. If they want to daze this, I don't mind. Okay, so next turn we can Defense Grid. Or we can Grim Monolith. I think it's more important to get the Defense Grid in unless our opponent is doing something really weird that we need to up our speed in. But at present, I think it's best we're just going to play this Defense Grid around a daze. Get that in. Beanstalk. Okay, so there's no counters they can cast mana for, so it's just going to be pitch cast counters. Do I want to play this Saga out or the Workshop? It is very tempting to try this Grim Monolith this turn. Because if it succeeds, it's really, really good for us. It will force a hard counter if they have one, but so will the Defense Grid. I think it's Saga and Defense Grid, but I think it's close here. So that's the thing with Defense Grid. Like, sometimes you don't necessarily have the right timing to play it. Whereas if all your deck is just full of Haymakers, you just keep casting the best card. And if they don't have a counter spell, then you win. If they do have the counter spell, then you just keep casting more Haymakers. Obviously, they had the counter spell there. I think that was pretty evident that it was going to be there. So next time we can play the Grim Monolith. Or not. They probably go after Saga here. Yep, okay. Can I resolve my Grim Monolith? Delver of Secrets is just a little threat. We don't care about that. Play the Workshop out because this could tap for more mana this turn cycle. So we play out the Grim Monolith here. If this resolves, we have 1 billion mana. Alright, they did have the force for it. So we just have to pass and try another Haymaker next turn. Obviously, Grim Monolith isn't really a Haymaker, but with this amount of keys in play, it kind of feels like one. The issue is our opponent's answering our big spells 1 for 1. Because the Beanstalk is just cashing them back in. So this is probably going to flip to the Temporal Mastery, yep. And then they're just going to take an extra turn and draw an extra card. And then we're going to see if we get another turn. So we take some damages. Does our opponent have a land to keep developing out? Or are they just taking advantage of hitting us for 3 and drawing that extra card? And they've got land. And they've got Odd Tamiyo. That's a really strong play. So now they're going to be developing more cards and more damage. At least they didn't Temporal Mastery this turn as well. Right, they're cracking a clue for the Tamiyo. Are they trying to flip this Tamiyo to get back a Force of Will? Or are they just trying to find more pressure? A Wasteland. Yep, that's pretty bad news for us. Like, our deck has 20 lands in it. We are very much getting victimized by wastelands today. These don't tap for any more mana than 1, so we don't get to play any spells. The amount of times that we've sat here today just getting bodied because we don't have enough lands to cast our spells is kind of daunting. Some of the Karn Forge builds play 1 Caracas, they go up to 21 lands. I don't hate that just for having an extra land. It could also be useful in situations like when a Tamiyo is beating you down. Another wasteland. I don't think we win this one. Yikes. Right, you crack that clue. The One Ring. No good. Not yet, anyway. Another Beanstalk, so they can flip the Tamiyo this turn if they want. If they crack that clue, it will flip the Tamiyo. Looks like that's what they're going for. So we have 1 turn to somehow not die. I don't know what in our deck gets us out of it. I don't think there is anything at all. We draw an Ancient Tomb then and be the ones to kill ourselves instead of our opponent doing it. That's always some sort of dignity. So you can play out Fleshraker. No, we can't play out Fleshraker. It taps for 1. Yeah, we're very dead there. Doesn't feel like we can actually reliably beat Delver strategies at all. Okay, so we are having a pretty rough one here. We are going 1 and 3 today. So let's see if we can at least make it a 2-3 in the final round. Alright, I open for the final round. This is pretty good. We have a turn 2 Karn. We can double a couple of keys as well. We'll keep this on. We've kind of got a selection of different plans we can lean into. So we could lead off on the Saga and start cranking some Saga tokens, or we could just go and deploy a key or 2. So the problem with deploying the keys immediately is that we don't get tokens for the Fleshraker. But if our Ancient Tomb gets hit, we're going to feel pretty bad about that. I think the correct play here is just Ancient Tomb pass. I wouldn't blame somebody for playing out a key or 2. But I think we're going to save these for the Fleshraker if we need them in a bit. Wasteland. Oh, I thought we were going to play a Colourless spell, but nope, we're just wastelanding us. But we get to start this turn all over again. So we do have a turn 2, but I'm just going to do this and deploy the key now so that we can just start cranking out constructs for a little bit. That is the new plan here. The other option there is to use the Lotus Petal and make our Fleshraker. Alright, Hedge Maze. We're looking at a Hedge Maze deck with Wasteland is kind of unusual. We're doing Bug Beans, perhaps? Do we need to play out this Lotus Petal? I don't think we do. I think Toughness 2 is the break point against things like Bowmasters and Witherbloom Commands that might be in our opponent's deck. But I guess I could -1 our guy and blow up our Manifold Key. So maybe we are supposed to play out the Petal just to avoid that particular scenario if they are playing Bug Beans. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Because now they can't kill our first construct. Well, obviously, they can Fatal Push it or whatever, but we're fine for them to spend cards for like a third of our Saga. Misty Rainforest. So if they weren't playing Wastelands, I'd be more worried in them being some sort of Nadu deck or like an Omnitel deck. But the fact they're playing a Wasteland shows us that they're trying to do something a bit temporary. Yep, so this is just Bug Beans. So the Urza Saga plan is very good in this matchup. They do obviously have Wastelands, but we're getting to run amok with this Saga. And that feels pretty good. I'm going to get a Mox Opal. It's either Mox Opal or Soulguard. I think we just need more mana right now. And then I will deploy this key just so we've got more artifacts in place so our beatdown plan looks better. So we can hit them for 6 this turn and then 12 next turn. So a single artifact gives us lethal next turn. So they have to interact with our constructs or they lose the game. Tropical Islands, that's not a fetch land. A Ponder, this can dig into something like a Witherbloom Command. But Witherbloom Command only shrinks our constructs. It doesn't defeat any of them. They didn't shuffle. I wonder what that means for us. We don't need to give them draws off this up the beanstalk either. A Kozilek's Command. Sure, I think we're just going to attack here and put our opponent to 1. Petty Theft. Sure. So we're only going to put them to 8. And now I think we play out... is it the Fleshraker or is it the One Ring? If we play the Fleshraker, it's a round of days. But then we're not playing anything immediately after it. So that kind of can be a bit awkward. 6 card in our opponent's hand. They probably have access to one of the spookier plays. I think I'm going to play out the Fleshraker here. Just keep our artifacts in play. This is also game 1 before our opponent has access to a bunch of scary things that we need to be aware of. Like Force of Vigor and stuff that can really blow us out. So again, we're playing 1 spell, kills our opponent. Wasteland. You can take out our Ancient Tomb. That's not terrible. Brazen Borrower can only block creatures with flying, so it's not going to be able to interact with our board favourably. They're going to need a spell here, otherwise they're going to put them to 1 again. Possibly less. Okay, so if they had a removal for Fleshraker, they probably would have fired it off already. Just going to ping our opponent for 1. We'll crash in. Orcish Bowmaster here is pretty reasonable. We can't make colourless mana using our Lotus spells. We can't fire off this Kozilek's command. So probably put both of them under the bus. It's unfortunate we lose our Fleshraker there. But I think we do have to keep applying the pressure. Like, let's say they just had like another Borrower that turn instead. We're going to want to be able to get our 2 points in with the Fleshraker there. Because we do kind of need to get this game over and done with at some point. Because Of the Beanstalk can provide a lot of card advantage here. And we are very stuck mana-wise. Which has been a recurring theme of this entire league, I would say. So if you're looking how to beat this deck, Wastelands is a pretty good way to go about it. Now, sometimes they always just have, well, sometimes they always, that doesn't make sense. But you know what I mean. Quite often your opponent's going to have the ability, alright, they're putting this on top of the library. Quite often when you're playing the Wasteland deck, your opponent just has the follow-up to replace the land you've just blown up. That's somewhat my experience. Alright, what are we looking at here? Our creature is big enough, which is nice. So this doesn't die to Murktide Regent. We can get them to chump block with the Murktide Regent. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we could play one thing. Are we just going to take this trade into the Murktide Regent? I think so. We could make our creature unblockable. But it'll cost us our spawn token. I don't think I want to do that. They could go to 1 here. That'll shut off Force of Will and fetch lands though. Which is big news for us. Under the bus you go, Murktide Regent. So we could try and stick something like a Mystic Forge here. It will cost us our Lotus Petal and our Eldrazi Spawn to do so, when we could just keep cranking out these constructs, which is already winning us the game. So then we're going to stick on the construct plan for now. We just don't want to give our opponent the ability to dig into answers. So cracking this Polluted Delta is pretty significant when we have a 6/6 in play. So now they have to answer this construct this turn. If they just tap out for the Lorien Reveal they put on top of their library, that's not going to work for them. So it has to be something else here. A Murderous Cut, targeting our poor defenseless construct. He was just minding his own business, and now he's gone. Are they going to ping down our Eldrazi Spawn token? They're going for our face. That is interesting. So this means they guaranteed the guy. So they ping this, we sack it, and they don't get a guy. But this means we still have mana, which is kind of one of the things we're trying to work with. Wouldn't mind seeing another land here. Not a land. So we could try and play this Grim Monolith, but if it doesn't resolve, then we just don't get to make a construct here. I think we're just going to sit back and continue to make constructs. And then if eventually all of our opponent's resources go into dealing with our constructs, then we can just start shoving these big things. Rakshas's Bargain. Sure. I wonder if they have access to any sort of dress down, because that could be awkward for us. I don't think they're getting any bits here. They're getting in the bits. Does that mean they have sorcery speed removal? What sorcery speed removal do they have? This could also be a Kaito. But again, Kaito doesn't stop us here. I think we just take this. This is a bit suspicious. We're going to keep our artifacts in play because they pumped our construct. We have a 6/6. We getting dressed down here? Just fatal pushing, sure. 5 cards left in our opponent's hand. So we can pop our Lotus Petal here in order to make a construct. I think that is reasonable enough. Like, they're trading one form with our constructs. Every single construct we make is lethal. Which of these do I want access to? Probably a Lotus Petal at this point. Let's get one of those in. Our opponent does run Dazes in their deck, so I don't really just want to hammer ourselves into that. We can untap this Mox Opal. That doesn't really do anything, but it's a thing we're allowed to do. Alright, so we've got a Brainstorm coming. So we have the mana represented to give our creature unblockable next turn. So if our opponent has nothing, we can win this game next turn. But our opponent's deck is designed to always have something. Another land, still 5 cards in hand over there. Fatal push on our poor defenseless innocent boy. He did nothing wrong. Okay, so now we're going to pivot to jamming like our big artifact stuff. Since we've run our course with the sagas, we've got a load of cards. Our opponent's traded like 4 cards for 1 for 2 Sagas. So we are massively up on that deal. Obviously, the Up the Beanstalk is a bit of a spooky one. But we'll deal with that one. Hopefully. A land. We did draw a land. An Ancient Tomb is a bit of a scary land to have. But we don't actually need to fire the Ancient Tomb in just yet. We can just go Grim Monolith and see if this resolves. It did resolve. Okay. Let's untap the Grim Monolith. And which payoff are we going for? We can go for the One Ring and then ping away a construct next turn. And we'll go for the One Ring because I think we need the shields right now. This also turns on our Ancient Tomb for a turn. They have a force, this might be what they're saving it for. Rather than trying to get us on mana, they're trying to get us on payoffs. Okay, this is pretty good news. So this will pump their Orc army, but they can't target us, which is a-okay with me. So we can tap this for mana. I think I just want more mana here. We've got so many things to do with our mana. Let's play out Fleshraker. Play out this Mystic Forge. We can pay using this Lotus Petal if our opponent has a daze here. They might be just going after the Fleshraker right now. But we still get our single trigger. Murderous Cut. Sure. So this is also going to draw them a card which could enable them to have a force effect for our Mystic Forge. Right, I will play this Voltaic Key. Do I want mana? Do I want more cards? We don't really want this thing. I'm going to pay 1 life and take this top card of my library away. Kozilek's Command is alright. We have options here. We can just draw some more cards. We can gain some more mana and do like a little K command. I think I'm inclined to untap the One Ring here. Because we might not be getting more cards out of it next turn because we don't want to trigger this Bowmaster necessarily. So we want to do the work we can whilst we can. Right, we found another land. It's not the best land, but it'll do. And we can't play this Candelabra because I haven't got any mana, but we'll pass. So we spent a while whittling our opponent's resources down with these Sagas, and now we're in a position where we can just pop off in theory. So they're going to take out our Planar Nexus, probably. They might take out the Ancient Tomb and just try and gate us on overall mana. But whilst we have the Grim Monolith here, we have mana. They're going after Nexus, so it's going to hurt us to activate the Ancient Tomb. So a Witherbloom Command is obviously disastrous for us here. That's probably what they're digging for. If they blow up the Grim Monolith, we'd probably just lose. So we're going to take some damage off this One Ring. Defense Grid isn't the most exciting thing here, is it? Okay, I think we begin by untapping this Grim Monolith. Do I play out this Defense Grid? We kind of need to kill our opponent. That's not necessarily going to be the easiest thing with what we have in hand right now. Right, we're going to play this and force our opponent to react. They either have to do something about this or they have nothing. Grim Monolith is excellent. That's the sort of thing we're looking for here. So I can force this and draw a card, but if this sticks, then they just don't get to cast any spells this turn. All right. So now we're kind of off. Play this Karn the Great Creator. Sure, that's pretty good. Tap this for a bunch of mana. I think we're untapping the mana here. I think we cast this Karn. Cast this Lotus Petal. We know our opponent can't cast spells. Okay, so there's another copy of the One Ring. So we can go and get... We can -2 this. We can go and get the Portable Hole. We can cast the Portable Hole. We can exile the Bowmasters. We can draw a bunch of cards with the One Ring, as is tradition. Then we'll deploy this Grim Monolith. Like, I think we should be able to have it from here. It's been a bit of a weird ride along the way, but here we are. So then we can untap this Grim Monolith. Let's get this One Ring in. Keep this fresh one. We have protection now, so our Ancient Tomb is online. We can draw this Urza's Workshop, but it doesn't tap for any additional mana. I believe we are fine to draw a card here. There is an Ugin on top of our library. Can we deploy this Ugin? I don't believe we can. We can play out this Urza's Workshop this turn, then next turn we'll have more mana from it. That's probably the best bet here. So we've got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 mana right now. 5 mana including this Lotus Petal. The Candelabra of Tawnos isn't really helping us out right now. So we're going to exile... Oh, we can't make spawns here, can we? That doesn't work very well for us. We could deploy another Karn. But they can attack the Karn with these creatures, so that's not actually very helpful. Play the Candelabra of Tawnos. And then this can untap this land. So this is 3 mana, 4 mana, 5 mana still. Can't do much with that. We can kill a guy and exile cards from graveyard. That's not the most impressive. I really don't want to get rid of this Ugin because that just wins us the game. We need to just pass a turn here and stop wasting our time because we are pretty low on the clock compared to our opponent. But this Ugin, it gains life to offset the One Ring. It's going to blow up all their permanents. It's going to be uncounterable. We're going to have a lovely time, and our opponent's going to have a horrible time. Brainstorm from our opponent. I guess we just F6 this turn, right? Need to save our clock. Right, they're killing our Karn. That was to be expected. But I also don't think it matters. Taking a bit of damage for our One Ring. That's a-okay with me. So we can play this one out, and it's now going to generate more mana. But I think first things first, we go untap this Grim Monolith. Untap this Grim Monolith. Untap this Grim Monolith. 7 mana. We can play this out. It helps us pay for other bits and pieces in a sec. I would like to exile your Murktide Regent, please. They do have a Brazen Borrower they can play for 6 mana at our end step, which will be lethal if our One Ring taps once more. Do they have a main deck consign? No, they have a Force. So we're not going to get to keep our Ugin around. But our opponent can't play any more spells apart from another Force. So they can't play a Bowmaster, so we can draw a card here, provided we're killing this. I guess we should see if this dies first. Do I want this card on top of my library is another question. So we're going to exile type creature with mana value X or less. And we're going to scry 1. Or scry 0 even. This will just put Planar Nexus into our hand and free the top card of our library. It's a Basalt Monolith, which we can cast. Our opponent can counterspell this. So if we tap this, another defense grid isn't really what we want. We can tap the One Ring, but we die to an Orcish Bowmasters in our opponent's turn, so we don't really get to do that. We've got the Voltaic Key that we can use for more mana right now. We'll untap a Grim Monolith instead. So we have 6 mana, so we can deploy the Karn. We can plus the Karn on this One Ring. We can go to attacks and beat our opponent down for 4. A bit of a weird, circuitous route to winning that game, but here we are. So, our opponent might have Null Rods, I think, and they're also a Wasteland matchup, so I wouldn't mind having access to a Boseiju here. I'm not really sure we want anything else. Dismember for the Bowmaster is kind of interesting. We already have Kozilek's Command, which can do a good job of doing that sort of thing. So, what do we not want from all of these things? I think Basalt Monolith is kind of like the weak link here. It is kind of like a bridge card that gets us up, but we need our haymakers here. Maybe we just cut 1 key, though. That's probably more sensible than cutting the Monolith. Maybe we should have been doing that before. Let's submit like this. This hand doesn't really go anywhere. I think we can do better. Okay, we're going to play an Urza Saga game, I guess, but we're very exposed to certain things our opponent can do here. The other option is we start out with an Ancient Tomb, which we need to decide what we put back. I think it is the Voltaic Key here. Just keep more haymakers. So we could play a Fleshraker on 1, but it's probably going to die to a Fatal Push. Planar Nexus, does that change anything? I think it does. I think this means we play out the Nexus. And this is kind of going to be bait. We're going to have to play a slightly slow game here. Right, they've surveilled and left a card on top. Not ideal for us. We're going to see a Wasteland here. Brainstorm, just going to find them a Wasteland. Thoughtseize is pretty strong here. They're taking our Glaring Fleshraker. That's not a huge surprise. That's kind of the thing we're setting up to do. So this turn we can play a... Oh, okay. We could just play the Fleshraker into a Daze and just try and get some value off his Lotus Petal straight away. I think that's what we're going to do. We need to make our decision quickly because we're so far behind on clock, because it's taken me a while to click through everything on this deck. And there's so many different lines when you have a billion cards in your hand. Alright, we got a Force of Will out of it. I don't know if I want to play this out to protect from Thoughtseize or keep it in hand to protect it from Witherbloom Command and stuff like that. Okay, so now we can go Urza Saga, get that rolling. We can play out the Lotus Petal so that we can afford to play around a Daze here. Now we have to choose which of these two we play. Our opponent knows we have both of them. I think I'm going to go for the Mystic Forge. And then we'll see how this pans out. Consign to memory. Sure. If they don't wasteland us, we can start in on the Urza Saga train. They might have boarded in Dress Downs or something. Alright, so they've got their Card Advantage engine rolling. We could interact with this, but we don't have to. We can just keep sending haymakers the Mystic Forge way. The One Ring. That's a pretty good Magic the Gathering card, isn't it? I think that is better than doing Saga stuff when our opponent's down to 2 cards. Do I expect our opponent to have something like a Spell Pierce in their deck? Not really. I think we can play out this Boseiju. This stops us from drawing a different land, but it means that we could find a Petal or something and turn on our Urza Saga this turn. Right, the last card I had was Forcible Blue card. This means our next Haymaker is likely to resolve. Not inevitable, but likely. Right, they're putting back a Force of Will. They have a way of getting it right now, though. So I think we're going to float off of this Saga. What do we want to have access to here? Saga Lantern could have been useful the previous turn. We could get a Mox Opal that won't be turned on necessarily. Although we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. 8 mana. So that's Karn plus Mystic Forge. That's pretty strong. As you can minus this. Okay, our opponent's F6 through our turn here. We can just go and get the Forge. Deploy the Forge. And this gives us a stream of card advantage for the future. So our opponent has high cast Force of Will. That's the thing we know that they have. I don't really want this card on top of my library, so let's just take it away. Kozilek's Command. That's a pretty good one. Do you have anything we want to get with the Karn right now? I don't believe so. I think we're just going to plus the Karn here with no targets. And then we're going to Kozilek's Command on our opponent's turn. This Mox Opal is turned off, but if we play a thing, it is turned on, but then it's the same mana. We may as well hold this in hand in case we draw a Fleshraker or something. A Thoughtseize is a little bit annoying. This means they don't have the mana for the hardcast Force of Will anymore. So we're going to scry and make some friends, and our opponent might have had enough with us. It's not the biggest Kozilek's Command in the world, but I'll take it. We don't want this, but that can go on the bottom. This can stay on top. So our opponent's just dead here. We have the Lattice lock. We can easily close the game out in 5 minutes. Yep, our opponent's are writing on the wall, and we finish with a 2-3 result, which is not ideal, but we did manage to put it together in the end. Let's talk about this and break down the pros and cons. So, I think that Mystic Forge, Karn Forge, whatever you want to call it, is one of the best decks in Legacy, and the stats definitely back that up. It probably puts it in the number 2 or number 3 slot in the format, depending on what metrics you want to look at. It's definitely something you need to be aware of. I think the deck is very good. Now, this particular build, not running Tezzerets, is kind of interesting, because what the Tezzeret does is it bridges you from your 2 drops like your Grim Monolith into your 4 drops, and it just gives you like another 3 drop alongside Glaring Fleshraker. And Tezzeret can go and pull up some mana for you. It can pull up utility pieces like the Pithing Needle, the Tormod's Crypt, stuff like that. It means you have to run less actual total Lotus Petals in your deck. So let's look at a Tezzeret build of this deck. So this is a Tezzeret version of the deck that just won a challenge this week. So we can see some similarities and some differences. So this has 1 additional land, which I'm honestly a fan of. I like having mana. Wasteland definitely seems like one of the scariest things for us to play against. This is kind of the 61st card in the main deck, I believe, is just an additional land, just to slightly tweak the numbers. But we have a whole boatload of Planeswalkers here. So we've got Tezzeret, Karn, and 2 Ugins. And then we've got 4 One Rings. We've got ourselves 1 Mystic Forge. So we're slightly down on Mystic Forges here. But we have a Tezzeret, so we've got something that's cheaper and easier to cast that can then provide like a plan C or D or whatever you want to call it, whilst also being a must-answer thing for your opponent. It's very hard to try and put the damage on this. You also get access to things like Mishra's Research Desk. So if you're in a pinch with a Tezzeret, you've got some utility where you can draw some cards with it. You have to play fewer keys in a build like this because Tezzeret is a key in and of itself. So if we compare that to what we played today, we had a lot of keys, and sometimes we were drawing keys that we couldn't necessarily do stuff with. That was quite a common occurrence. That happens less when you have a Tezzeret, because you've got a Tezzeret, there's a key that also does other stuff, and it draws attention for your opponent, which can keep you alive longer. It can produce different win conditions. It can also tutor some much needed pieces. So personally, I think the Tezzeret build of this is where I would want to be. What did we lose to today, though? We lost mainly to Wasteland strategies, and that was pretty taxing for us because our mana base is pretty sketchy. We don't have any basics in our mana base, so it is easy to pick it apart if you have the tools. And if we do brick on land, it can be game over. That's one of the best ways of attacking a Mystic Forge deck. And I personally wouldn't mind playing 1 additional card and having it be a land just to slightly tweak those numbers in our favour. And Karakas isn't a bad land to have access to. The defense grid is kind of like one of the big things worth talking about here. So in the blue matchups, you play a defense grid, and they either counter it or it sticks, and you get to resolve your follow-up spells. That's all well and good. In the non-blue matchups, you play the defense grid, it doesn't do anything. You just spent your mana, maybe your opponent then gets a turn to wasteland you when you could have played something else out, maybe didn't know they were blue or whatever. Now, let's say we didn't have Tezzeret and we didn't have defense grid and we just had like 4 Tezzerets in our deck. So we'd be going down 1 Mystic Forge as a payoff, but we'd be going up 4 Tezzerets because we're cutting keys and things. So we end up with more payoffs in our deck. Every single thing we cast is basically a must answer for our opponent. Tezzeret, if you can't counter it, will eventually win the game. Karn will win the game. Fleshraker win the game. One Ring, Mystic Forge, Ugin, Eye of Storms. All of these things are must-answer spells. So instead of trying to stop our opponent from being able to answer our spells, we just say, can you answer this? And if their answer at any point is no, then they sort of lose the game. And I think, whilst it's not a particularly elegant style of Magic the Gathering, I think the most potent way is to just keep saying, answer this, answer this, answer this. And another thing that you get, if you're playing something like a Tezzeret over a defense grid, if your opponent wastelands you after you've played that drop, let's say you've got a Soul Land plus a Lotus Petal. If you play a Tezzeret, then if they wasteland, then you still got stuff going on. You're accruing advantage by minusing your Tezzeret, playing artifacts, bumping up your Tezzeret, and then you've just got this object in play that is going to cause problems for your opponent and can dig you out of the hole quite nicely. Whereas, if you play the defense grid and your opponent wastelands you, you don't get to play the game of Magic the Gathering very much, right? You're kind of just stuck waiting to draw lands. And whilst the defense grid is a powerful effect, the sad fact of it is, when cards are so powerful that resolving them basically wins the game, just keep jamming, right? That's what this deck wants to do. It just keeps jamming, keeps jamming. Like against that Bug Beans deck that we played against in the last round, they had access to the Beanstalk super early on. They were drawing a million cards. Everything they were doing was interacting with us. They answered everything we did, but we still have more because everything we had was such a big haymaker. And I think that is probably the best direction to take a deck like this. If you're intent on playing a defense grid build, you certainly can do it. But I think for the purposes of what the donor wanted in terms of what they should be playing at Eternal Weekend, I would be tempted to sleeve up this deck that just won the challenge. I really like having the additional land here. I also like having fewer keys, so you have a little bit less air in your deck. And Tezzeret obviously covers those functions. Ugin is just an absolute banger of a card. If we look at the sideboard here, it's pretty close to what is in our sideboard today. This build is opting not to play Dismember so it can play some Disruptor Flutes and have some Pithy Needles as well over the Surgical Extraction. But other than that, it's the same sort of package. So we're basically just swapping out, 3 cards here, which I think is perfectly reasonable. If you really want the Dismembers to deal with things like the Collector Reef, you can do that. But the thing is, Tezzeret allows you to play a main deck Portable Hole now. So you have a main deck Portable Hole and a Wishable Portable Hole. So actually, you're pretty good into Collector Roof, certainly better than the deck used to be. And then you also have Ugin at the top end, which sometimes you just play your lands out. If your opponent's just beating you down with a 2-2, you get enough time, Ugin comes down and just dominates the game. So I think this build is probably what I would go for if I was playing this at Eternal Weekend. And obviously, Blade Magician, who won a challenge, has a lot more idea of how to play through this deck than I do, so I'm certainly going to take their word for it. Something that people talk about when playing Magic the Gathering is, your win conditions in a deck. But I think it's really important to also look at your loss conditions. So a deck like Mystic Forge combo is very powerful. Eventually, if you give it time, it will win the game. That's what it does. And so instead of thinking about, how do I win the game, I think flipping it on its head and saying, what are the loss conditions for playing this Mystic Forge combo deck? And when you think about it, the loss conditions are your mana is not underneath you and you draw too much air. So what this particular build is doing, it has slightly more mana, not by much, just 1 piece of mana, but then it's also running something to bridge the mid game in the Tezzeret, which is a must-answer thing that is enabling you to play the game on lower resources. So this is only a 3 mana spell. And there are certainly situations where we're on 3 mana. But then it's also cut out a bunch of air from the deck. So instead of having 7 keys, this build instead has 4, which is a lot less air. And that's going to end up being way better for you in the long run. So I think what this does is it lowers the floor of the deck a lot by playing the Tezzerets. And it probably it raises the floor and it raises the average as well. Now, you could argue that a build like this that we played today has slightly more ability to pop off because we're running an extra monolith. so that can sometimes just really send you into the stratosphere. But in my experience, Basalt Monolith is not a particularly useful card. Now, I understand why it's in the deck, and it always used to be in the deck, but I think in the age of Tezzeret, you don't necessarily need the Basalt Monolith anymore. You can just run Tezzeret in that 3-drop slot. But I think we did a good job showcasing today why something like this ends up being slightly better than something like what we played today. There's obviously a way up when you're taking your deck to Eternal Weekend, including familiarity and stuff, but just swapping out a few cards and adding in some Tezzerets and a few more silver bullets in your main, which help you against main deck Collectroofs, which you should be expecting from any Green Sun Zenith deck at this point. So it's going to help you against a lot of random matchups that are trying to gun for you. And then you can just sort of steamroller over a whole bunch of other things. So I'm a big fan of playing Tezzeret, as you probably guessed. But I do think we had a good showcase of the increased percentages of your loss conditions by not playing the Tezzeret, which I think hopefully is helpful to the donor and gives them a bit more information about this. I did ask the donor if they had Tezzerets available to run for Eternal Weekend, and they said that they do. So I would probably recommend to them that you should run a build that looks like the one we just had up on screen. And examining exactly why that is the case is hopefully what we've done today, and you've enjoyed it all. Ramble over and done with. I always try to do a little bit of extra talking at the end when we're playing a donor's deck, so I want them to feel like they're getting the most out of it. And if you would like a donor deck on the channel, please get in touch. You can get in touch with me via the Discord or on my Patreon. I'm happy to brew stuff for you or play the exact 75 you want, and you'll get my full devoted attention as well. Alright, thank you all so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.